I want to welcome you to the virtual mayoral candidate discussion. My name is Brittae Gray Ross. I am the Director of Educational Activities for the Epsilon Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Just some quick things about registering to vote. The last day to register to vote is February 3rd, and the last day to request an absentee ballot is February 17th. So real quick for those who may be joining us via Facebook, this is a virtual discussion. So this is not just an interview between me and Treasurer Jones, but also a discussion between us, Treasurer Jones, and the public. So if you have any questions, put them in the comment box, and I will try to answer what questions that I can. And of course, I'll have some questions myself for Treasurer Jones. So without further ado, I have my very special guest, Treasurer Tishara Jones. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to the Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated for having me today.
No problem. We're happy to have you. I wanted to start off by, for those who may not know, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and why you got into politics.
Yes, so I've been treasurer for the last 8 years, but I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I grew up in Hamilton Heights, Wells Goodfellow, and Walnut Park neighborhoods, for those who are familiar with where those neighborhoods are. My grandparents on my mother's side actually started in Old North St. Louis. So, my family is it's big, but this is where we call home. And I served in the legislature for 2 terms, also assistant minority floor leader, the first African-American, first female to become assistant minority floor leader. And I'm also the first Black female treasurer in the city of St. Louis. So I've been blessed to have a good career in politics. And during the last 8 years as treasurer, I've been able to take my vision and implement it from a dream to a reality. I've been able to start financial empowerment services, totally improve the parking infrastructure and technology, and also start savings accounts for children in the city of St. Louis through the College Kids Children's Savings Account Program, which gives a $50 college savings account to every kindergartner in a public school in the city of St. Louis. And so far, we have over 18,000 children with over $1 million saved for their futures. And it's paid for partially by parking funds. So every time you park at a parking meter or in a city-owned garage, you're helping a child achieve their dreams. And I want to take the same spirit of taking a platform and turn it into a reality into the mayor's office. And I want to create a city where everyone is able to succeed.
Treasurer Jones, I think you took a look at some of my questions already. So I think you did.
No, well, we'll bring them on. Bring them on. Let's have that discussion.
But for my next question, just to give it a little context, in the last mayoral primary, you got about 30% of the vote. What did you learn during your last mayoral campaign that makes you better prepared to both lead and govern at this time?
So the one thing I would say that I learned during the last mayor's campaign is maybe start earlier and start harder. We waited about a week before announcing after I won the last treasurer's race. And so this time we announced the day after. It wasn't always the intention to run. I prayed about it. I wasn't sure if I was going to run again. But once I made the decision, we just went with it. We came out of the gate hard, we came out of the gate strong. And as a result, since November 4th, we've had over 1,000 individual donations, everything from $5 to over $2,600. And then also we've had over 300 volunteers sign up. This is a people-powered campaign because the mayor's office reports to the people. And I will be the people's mayor if elected on April 6th, not March 2nd. March 2nd is just the primary, but April 6th.
Yeah, yeah. For our viewers, the primaries are March the 2nd, and the actual election is April 6th. So just for our viewers. In that last election, you know, you had quite a number of African American candidates running with you. Did you think that had any effect on you ultimately winning that primary?
And absolutely, because we at the time had partisan primaries and we had 5 African American candidates and 2 white candidates. And I'm not going to, say that anybody didn't have a right to run. However, when you have partisan primaries, you have vote splitting. So, I'm not going to question anyone's motives, but there were obviously people in the community who said that there were people who were planted in the race to do nothing but stand in my way or getting my way of winning or split the vote. And as I traveled the country and talked with my friends, they looked at St. Louis cross-eyed, like why couldn't y'all get together and sit down in a room and try to work this out. And that did happen. Dr. Suggs, the CEO and publisher of the St. Louis American, pulled us all into a room in the very beginning. And the only thing that happened was State Senator Jamila Nasheed decided not to run. And the rest of the men stayed in. But things are going to be different this time. We have a new voting system with approval voting, which will allow people on March 2nd to have more than one choice. And then the top 2 vote getters then go on to the runoff on April 6th.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like you probably would have had somewhat of the same circumstance if it wasn't for the signatures. I think about 3 people dropped out because they didn't get the number of signatures. So it was sort of shaping up to be almost the
a
same.
Free for all again. The mayoral melee is what they call it.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's a little different this time. And now with the nonpartisan to ballot, we can get whoever is the top 2 elected. So I did want to ask because in one of your campaign release statements, it was written that the people of St. Louis are ready to elect a mayor who reflects them and their desire to have a government of, by, and for working families. What does that mean?
So as a single mom, my most important job is mother. My son is 13 and he is taller than me. He's going to be 6 feet, in a mere number of months. But he's still 13. He's a boy. And he and I were having this conversation when he was asking me, like, what does the mayor do? And he was asking me about the police. And he said, well, mommy, will you be the boss of the police? I said, well, yeah, kind of. The police chief, indirectly reports to the mayor. And he said, oh, well, then that means I'm going to be safe. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that my son believes that he will only be safe if his mother is elected mayor. Now, that's not the case for, the thousands of Black children that live in our city. So, these are your tax dollars and you pay for representation. And so I want to build a St. Louis where, again, everybody's able to succeed no matter what zip code you live in, who you love, how you worship, what school you attend. We need to create an environment where people want to stay here when their children start to grow older, but also consider moving back to St. Louis. Several of my friends who graduated college with me don't even live here anymore and aren't even thinking about coming back to St. Louis. And we know what a gem this city and this region is. So, I want to do things like having participatory budgeting and getting your voice and how we spend your tax dollars. I want to put the public back in public safety, because police shouldn't be the only answer when you call 911. I want to have an intentional investment in communities north of Del Mar and parts of South St. Louis, which haven't seen an investment in decades. And we shouldn't be surprised when schools are closing when we haven't invested in those neighborhoods. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy to not invest in North St. Louis for decades and then be alarmed when schools start to close. We've lost over 21,000 Black people since the last census, and that's alarming. So we need to reverse that trend, invest in neighborhoods, and create an environment where people want to come back to St. Louis and not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah. So my next question was kind of piggybacking off your last statement. Um, and I guess you can be a little more specific with this question. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask it. The city of St. Louis has been experiencing significant population loss, resulting in decline of revenues and tax base, school closing, and including an increase in vacancy and crime rates. This has also created a negative image in many respects. What is your proposal to improve the perception of the city locally and nationally, and increasing the population base?
Yeah, again, a great question. And we talked about that a little bit in my last answer. We need to create an environment where St. Louis is looked at as a city that people want to move to. So that means intentional investment in North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis. So my strategy is to address crime and public safety, address the the elephant in the room that we had our most violent year on record in the year 2020. And so what types of things can we do to reduce crime and make sure that people feel safe in their homes and in their neighborhoods? Because in my opinion, public safety doesn't just mean police. It means all of the things holistically that keep you safe in your home. We need to close the workhouse and use that money to invest in mental health and substance abuse services, because a lot of people that are in our jails are there because they are sick or on drugs or poor. So we need to work with other city departments to make entrepreneurship an option for people who feel like they don't want to have a 9-to-5 job. So what are we doing to build small business? And what are we also doing to get properties off of our roads? The LRA, or the city, is the largest property owner in the city. So how can we create programs to get that property into the hands of small business owners and everyday people to rehab and build homes and build businesses and rebuild our neighborhoods, and work with people that live in the neighborhoods to create plans that will develop those neighborhoods based on what they want. So development happens with them, not to them.
Yeah, I'm seeing some questions in the comments. I'm gonna get to them. All right, but let me ask a couple more first. So I asked this one: why would you reinstate the position of deputy mayor for racial equity?
Because racial equity should be at the center of everything that we do. St. Louis is a hyper segregated city, and we have not addressed another elephant in the room: our racial divide. We know that the Del Mar divide is real. We know that north of Del Mar, the population is 99% African American, and south of Del Mar, the population is only maybe 60 or 50% African American. And we know that there are several racial disparities that determine outcomes, so many outcomes for our citizens. For example, there's a 15-year difference in life expectancy between the zip code 63106 and 63105. So how can we reduce the disparity there? And then income disparities are huge in our city. How can we address the poverty that we have in the city and decrease the racial wealth gap, which the last time I checked, the racial wealth gap between Black and white families is 10 times. So white families have 10 times the wealth of Black families. So I want to address that as well. And there are a whole host of things that a deputy mayor of racial equity can help address by having that person at the table, but also have them have some decision-making power and looking at all of our policies and procedures through a racial equity lens and start to change them so that, again, we create an environment where everyone can succeed.
So I'm gonna go to this, and I may go back to some more economic questions, but I want to get into COVID-19.
Mhm.
So COVID, this pandemic has been a big issue with, the country and also, as you know, with our city. So coming from the St. Louis today, they reported that we've actually been on the decline as far as the number of cases and hospitalizations within the past 2 months. How would you work to continue the decline of coronavirus infection rate and hospitalizations?
So fortunately, we now have a vaccine. And my father, who is 74, got his first shot this morning. But we need to make sure that everybody who wants a vaccination has an option to get it and for free. We need to make sure that also testing sites are available, and work with our existing health network and our community health workers to make sure that they're giving out the right or correct information on when you should get tested, how to get tested, and also educating people about the risks and the benefits of the vaccine. So I look forward to working within our existing structure to provide as many sites as possible to help people not only get tested, but also get vaccinated. And then we also have to look at what's going to come down from the federal government as far as aid in the next package. I believe President Biden has proposed a $1.9 trillion aid package directly for cities, which is going to include another $1,400 payment directly to families, as well as hopefully aid directly to cities. I'm part of the New Deal Leaders Network, as well as Local Progress, which is a collection of local leaders around the country. And we have been sending letters to the administration as well as to Congress to ask for aid to cities less than 500,000, because the last time we received aid, it came through the state and we had to wait several weeks, and there were stipulations attached to that aid that we could only use it for certain things. We need aid to plug our budget holes so we can continue to provide services to our citizens. And for Congress back then to put stipulations on the aid, it just really tied our hands as far as what we could do.
Awesome. I'm gonna go to a question from the audience really quick, and then I may jump. I'm gonna be jumping back and forth. So I got a question from Malik Lindell. He says, last year, Mayor Lyda Crewson simply watched as the camp and property of homeless individuals were destroyed. Essentially, they were punished for trying their best to survive. How would you address homelessness in the city without attempting to erase or displace the homeless population?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And the city has been a horrible partner for our unhoused population. So the CDC recommended that we should not disrupt housing encampments. And that's exactly what this administration did. They went opposite the CDC recommendations. We also don't have a good network of walk-in shelters for our unhoused. I was one of the only people who was against closing the downtown shelter operated by Larry Rice, because we didn't have any other alternatives at the time. And I had a conversation with the Continuum of Care, and they said what we all knew was true by closing Larry Rice, which is not perfect, but not having any option, any, affordable or any options for homeless was a mistake. And now we have this new tiny village or tiny home village for homeless, but the barriers are so high for people to be able to get in that it sits empty. So we need to reduce the barriers for entry, and also, and provide wraparound services, but also work with our partners in the county and in East St. Louis, because homelessness just is not in St. Louis City. It doesn't just stop at Skinker Boulevard or the Mississippi River. So we need to continue to work with the continuum of care, give them what they need to provide care to our unhoused population, and then get out of the way. I feel like, government needs to help people find those resources and then get out of the way.
That's awesome. um, uh, for my next question, how would St. Louis City prepare for the next crisis? This is relating to the pandemic and COVID-19, to make the city more resilient.
Yes, so also we had a chief resiliency officer under the last administration, not the Cruzen administration, but the Slay administration, through a grant through the Rockefeller Foundation. That person left maybe 2 years into the Cruzen administration, and that person's sole responsibility was to create a resiliency plan for the city should we encounter a pandemic or other natural emergency or disaster. So we need to bring that position back, or we need to take a look at what that plan was and try to implement it so we are ready when the next disaster happens, because it won't be an if. We sit in Tornado Alley. So we could get hit by a tornado at any time. We saw that when the airport was hit by a tornado in Bridgeton. So we need to make sure that we are taking the necessary steps to have a resiliency plan for when the next disaster hits. That means taking a look at the work that was previously done by the resiliency officer, and making sure that we are ready for the next time.
Are there are any dates coming up for the COVID vaccine?
I don't know. I'm sitting on a waiting list myself. I register. I get most of my care at Barnes Jewish, so I registered through their survey, and they gave me the response of, "Thanks for registering. We'll let you know." So, but we know that President Biden's plan is to vaccinate 100 million people in the first 100 days. And we know how people will be triaged. We know that our first responders and our senior citizens, our most vulnerable population, and essential workers are going to be first. I think teachers are going to be considered essential, so our kids can start going back to school. And I think that, just regular healthy people like you and I are going to be at the bottom of the list. So maybe, hopefully by summer, who knows?
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be over. I know a lot of people are.
I know I'm ready for my son to go back to school. He's virtual, and I know he's sick of me because I'm the lunch lady, I'm the counselor, I'm the gym teacher,
right.
I'm the math tutor, all of the things.
We all miss school.
Yeah.
So the city and county have slightly different COVID orders. So why does the city have different COVID restrictions than the county, and what can be done to better assist small businesses during the pandemic?
So the city and county have different orders because of a lack of cooperation between the city and county health departments and city and county leadership. That stops if I'm elected, because I have a great working relationship with Sam Page. We have been friends for over 10 years, or since 2008 at least. And we talk and text pretty frequently. So that stops because it made no sense to have different health orders for the city versus the county. And as far as helping small businesses, hopefully with the new PPP loans that are coming out. We also have, here's a shameless plug also. So on Tuesday at noon, if you tune into the Treasurer's Facebook page, we have a webinar with Melissa Jones from Enterprise Bank, who's going to talk about the new PPP loans that are coming down the pipeline from the federal government, because apparently there have been some changes to the program that hopefully will help more small businesses. But I'm also, again, hopeful for this new aid package that will, if there aren't as many restrictions on the money that the cities get, that the cities will be able to help people better, or in small businesses directly better. But there have been also a host of foundations and organizations that have issued grants and small loans to small businesses. And look, I get it. You know, small businesses are hurting, and everybody doesn't qualify for PPP loans or PPP grants. You know, we need to do whatever we can to try to fill in the gap.
Yeah, there's been a lot of complaints about the restrictions and how they're hindering the businesses from, being able to function, and the government coming down on them. So what do you think about the current restrictions that are in place and some of the businesses who have been forced to shut down, whether it be the city or the county?
It breaks my heart. And some of my favorite restaurants did not survive the pandemic. And, you know, we've seen a lot of, retailers also that did not survive. You know, I think that it's going to be a long time before we get back to what's been called a new normal. Do I think that some of these businesses will reopen at some point? I hope so. But I also hope that with whatever aid package we do get from the federal government, that we meaning government, are able to help people in a more flexible way.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean to. Okay, we gotta get some people up out of here. I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of trolling in the chat right now. Who is this dude?
And we'll ignore it and move on.
Yeah. Well, I really don't like that. Okay, so we definitely have some racists in the room, but this is public, so we expect, all of the public, our friends and our enemies, to be present. So, moving on. Should Sumner High School be closed, or do you think it should be turned into a museum for African Americans due to its historic significance?
So I think, as I've said publicly, closing Sumner High School should be a line that's drawn in the sand. And I applaud Dr. Adams for making the hard choices. And in my conversations with him, like I said earlier, we should not be surprised that schools are closing in North St. Louis when there has been literally no investment in North St. Louis since or over decades. And while I don't agree with Sumner High School being closed, I also think that we should contact the community and let them let us know what they want to see done with Sumner High School. I know that there are some plans in the works for a different use for the school, and we'll just have to wait and see what those outcomes are.
So how would you address crime and policing in the city of St. Louis?
So I want to put the public back in public safety. And what that means is making sure that we deploy the right type of professional to the right type of call. So that means either staffing the police department or an adjacent department with mental health and substance abuse professionals. That means redeploying professionals to, or also retraining our 911 operators to triage the right type of call. And again, deploy the right type of professional to the right type of call. This has been tried and works in other cities like Miami and Seattle. I think that we should maybe stop this Zoom and lock down your.
Oh no, 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 no! I'm not gonna stop my Zoom.
Okay.
So,
And somehow or another, people
yeah.
have access to your.
Because a few bigots got on the line, you know, we've been through too much. And you know, since we're on the topic, last year the Ethical Society of Police stated that there were some white supremacists in St. Louis Police Department. How do you how do you plan to address the issue of white supremacists in St. Louis Police Department?
So yeah, that's a great question. I think that we need a top to bottom review of our police department. And actually, we just saw a report issued by Teneo that was paid for by Civic Progress and other business leaders across the city. And what it revealed was things that, we already know, that there are people who are within the police department who don't believe that Black Lives Matter. And as a result, I think we need to hold people accountable if they express views that are racist or sexist, or that don't believe that they should respect the people that they serve, because again, their salaries are paid for by tax dollars. And what do we see on the side of every police car? To protect and to serve. So we need we need to be able to hold police accountable, not only for that, but they also need to be held accountable for police involved shootings. St. Louis, unfortunately, leads the nation in the number of police involved shootings per capita, along with being one of the most violent cities. So we need to take a look at the collective bargaining agreement, and compare that to our current disciplinary procedures, and make sure that there are ways to hold officers accountable.
Definitely, definitely. That's been a big issue, around the country, with the Plainview Project, and just everything that's been happening with George Floyd to Breonna Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Just sad, and something definitely needs to be done about it, especially looking at this chat.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on. Some would say North St. Louis has been neglected for years. The National Geospatial Administration is in the process of building a multi-billion dollar facility in North St. Louis. But there are many areas and wards of North St. Louis that continue to be neglected. How do you say to the constituents in those areas that remain underserved? How do you plan to address the Delmar divide?
We talked about this a little earlier. Whoever asked the question is absolutely right. North St. Louis has not seen any real investment in decades. And while the NGA is a good project, it is mostly federal. So a lot of the jobs that will be at the NGA will require high levels of security clearance, which we know that many people in our population may not be able to attain those clearances. And then the jobs also are going to be high level jobs. So what are we doing to train our current children for the jobs of the future? So we need to work with our education system, with our higher education system, to make sure that we are offering coursework to help them be prepared to take those jobs once NGA is completed. And then we also need to look at the neighborhood surrounding NGA as it starts to improve, or as we say, gentrify, to make sure that families who have had homes there for years are not pushed out when the property taxes start to go up. So what kind of policies can we put together, or what kind of policies can we put together to make sure that families who've been there for decades are not pushed out when the neighborhood improves, as well as allow them to stay.
Excuse me, I don't mean to look like a preacher or nothing, but they're saying I'm real greasy on the screen.
It's okay. It's the light. It's the light.
But anyway, we got a question from Lorenzo D. Savage. When you are elected, I guess he's a prophet. How do you plan on improving relationship with the great city of East St. Louis?
So that's a great question. So I spent many a summer in East St. Louis. My grandparents live there, so it's personal to me. So I have a relationship with the mayor currently there, as well as the state reps and the state senator who represent that area. And I think that we've done our neighbors to the east a huge disservice by not even considering their voice at the table when we make decisions about the region. So I'll be an active partner, an active person reaching out to our neighbors in East St. Louis, because again, it's personal for me. Those are the streets that I rode bikes on, skinned my knees on, helped my grandmother with her garden in. So it's personal for me to make sure that that we are paying attention and helping our neighbors to the east.
Awesome. Definitely got ties to the east side myself. Got another question. If elected mayor, what will be the number one item that you would like to address on day one?
The number one thing, we need to do a top to bottom review of city government, and see and do an assessment of our departments, as well as our budget. The budget's going to be voted on within the first 100 days that I'm in office. So that means all of the departments that report to the mayor. That's public safety, that's buildings, that's streets and traffic and refuse. And that's exactly what I did when I became treasurer. I did a top to bottom review of the treasurer's office to see what our sources and uses of funds were, who's in what positions, and interview as many people as possible to visit our departments and get a good assessment on how we do business and how we deliver services, and then develop a plan or a strategy for moving forward. So by the 100th day, everybody in St. Louis will know what the plan is for moving forward. We'll have more town halls and more discussions like this, to make sure that you are aware of what I'm doing and how, and then also to give me feedback, because again, these are your tax dollars. You paid my salary. And so you deserve to know what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and then give me feedback if you agree or disagree, because we have to have these conversations about how our city is going to move forward.
Next question. What initiative or incentives would you propose for city-based businesses to hire employee eligible youth?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What initiative or incentives would you propose for city-based businesses to hire employee eligible youth?
So this is a great question. I know that currently we have a summer youth employment program. I would like to expand that to year round. And I don't think we have to have incentives to do that. I think we just need to develop more partnerships with our local businesses to hire our youth, because our families don't just need help during the summer. Some of our families need help year round, and some of our kids are able to work year round. And I know that when I was in high school, you could get a job during the afternoons, bagging groceries at the local grocery store, or something similar. I want to go back to, the former mayor Marion Barry, who said that every kid that wants a job can get a job. So what kind of partnerships can we form with our local companies to make sure that our youth employment program is robust, and that every child that can work can get a job?
Do you support a city-county merger?
So you know what? I support the process of looking at it, and I support the freeholders process. I think that we did our voters a huge disservice by not continuing with that process. But we also need to, have more robust conversations about what things we can do now that don't require a city-county merger, but what sort of things can we combine and collaborate and work better on. That may just require a memorandum of understanding or a vote of our respective councils. So again, I have a great relationship with County Executive Sam Page and several people that are on the county council. And I look forward to working with them, as well as mayors in different municipalities, to see how we can work together to get rid of some of the barriers, or the invisible barriers that divide us.
If there was a discussion moving forward, what would a city-county merger look like as far as like the government structure?
And that's up to the people. So that's the beauty of our public process. We right now within the Constitution have a process to for the people to draw up what that process looks like. So with the Board of Freeholders, that nine selected in the county, 9 selected in the city, and the governor with a tiebreaker can have public meetings over the course of 12 months and then present a plan to the people of what a city-county merger would look like with our input. So it's a totally public process. The last time that the freeholders process was successful was when the Metropolitan Sewer District was formed. But I believe that that our city-county merger process doesn't need to happen just with one freeholders process. It could be a myriad or several freeholders boards appointed every 2 years, and we can attack one thing at a time, because this city county merger thing it's as big as an elephant, in my opinion. And how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So we would have, in my opinion, several freeholders processes happening one after the other, where first we talk about one issue at a time. It could be that we talk about police and public safety on one, or our fire districts in another, because we have over 50 of those. We have over 50 police departments. We talk about education because we have over 22 school districts. At one point, before either you or I were, even interested in politics, they talked about forming a regional school district, and instead we got the DSEG program. So, we need to talk about all of these things that separate us, and we can do it on a succession of freeholders boards, but handling one issue at a time.
I got a question from Erica Brooks. She says, if the airport is privatized, will the taxpayers have any input in how our sales taxes are used?
So currently the airport is a enterprise fund. And what that means is all of the fees collected at the airport are used to operate the airport. So our taxes technically don't go to the airport, because it's run on all of the money that it collects within the airport. So there have been a couple of attempts to privatize the airport. One of them was they were going to put it on the ballot for us to vote for privatization. The other one was done under the cloud of secrecy with our current administration, and that process failed. Do I believe that the airport could be monetized and we could be making more money? Absolutely. Do I think that it needs an overhaul? Absolutely. But I think that there are ways to do it that keep it as an asset. And then we look at, other ways to improve the airport as well, that don't require privatization.
Gotcha. Large parts of the city are in food deserts, meaning there are no full service grocery stores within a 1 mile radius of many residents. What
Mhm.
incentives would you create to either attract more full service grocery stores or support other healthy food options?
Yeah, this is again about being intentional about investments. We have given away over $700 million in tax increment financing and tax abatements since the year 2000. And 50% of it or more is located in only 4 wards. And so all of this has been approved by the Board of Aldermen and signed by previous mayors. So I think we need to be intentional about our investment, attach community benefit agreements to large development projects, which means that, if we're going to give our tax dollars away, then we need to see something that benefits the community. That could also mean inclusionary zoning, which increases affordable housing options when new apartments are built. And again, being intentional about our investment. So, you need a mayor who's going to say, I'm not going to give you a tax incentive for this neighborhood because it doesn't need any more tax incentives. However, I can give you, a partial tax incentive for developing a grocery store in this neighborhood, which hasn't seen investment in decades. And we need someone who's going to push back and be forceful.
All right, I got another question. I apologize if it's a bit redundant. But there was a report in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, January of 2019, that claimed tax abatement costs St. Louis schools about $31 million in uncollected revenue. Do you support tax abatements at the ultimate cost to the children of the city of St. Louis? And is this the reason why we are seeing public school closings?
So tax abatements can be useful tools of development. I don't want anybody to think that I am against using tax abatements and tax increment financing for development. However, I think that they can be used responsibly and in areas that haven't seen investment in decades. So, and the person who's asking the question is right. We give away we have had a practice of giving away tax abatements and tax increment financing like Halloween candy and at the peril of our school district. But that's not the only reason why our schools are closing. Our schools are closing because we have not invested in North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis, and the population is leaving. And we can't expect schools to stay open if there are no children in the neighborhood to go to that school. So we have to, and also since the last census, we've lost 20,000 African Americans in the city of St. Louis. So what do we do to reverse that trend? We have to create an environment where people want to move back to St. Louis and invest in neighborhoods that haven't seen investment in decades. And then we will see schools come back. But it's not going to happen overnight, and no, it's not going to happen in 4 years, in the 4 years of any mayor's administration. So we're going to have patience to reverse the trend of population decline and create an environment where people want to move back to St. Louis and stay and grow their families.
I got another question. Will merging the city and the county have the same mission as the Better Together St. Louis organization?
Again, we don't know, because if we go through the freeholders process, that's a process that's open to the public, and will be deliberative over a 12-month period with a lot of public input. And then the plan, whatever is voted on by the freeholders, will then be put on the ballot, and it will be up to the people to vote yes or no. So it will be up to us to determine our destiny as far as what a city county merger will look like, and what it will entail.
Well, it looks like all of my questions you pretty much knocked out really well. And I once again I appreciate you taking the time out to have an interview with us and with the community. I try to take as many questions as I could, via Facebook. So those of you all who are listening, or if you wanted to share this interview with other people, this will be reshared on the YouTube page, our chapter YouTube page. If you want to go there to check out the replay of what we did here today. Once again, I want to thank you, Treasure Jones, for your time. Good luck to you in the future.
Thank
And
you.
this one, and we ignored the trolls altogether, so we did well.
Yeah, I'm good at ignoring trolls.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time.
Yes, thank you. All right, take care.
All right.